A Tale of Two Hygienists presents this week's TIPisode, quick and easy tips to keep you up to date and presented by the experts in the profession. Now, get ready for your unofficial TIPisode.
Hello, fellow dental professionals. It's Dr. James Younger here, a practicing dentist and the founder and CEO of TempStars. And first of all, thanks again to Andrew and the team at A Tale of Two Hygienists. They've been providing great content to the dental profession for years, and I'm just really happy to be a part of this and have the opportunity to speak to you today. So I had a conversation last week with Wendy from the BC Dental Hygienists Association that I just kind of wanted to relay because the conversation was really good and I thought it was fairly insightful. We had a great discussion and I just wanted to kind of relay some of the things we talked about. So a bit of a background there. We've been working with the BC Dental Hygienists Association for years, sponsoring, supporting, speaking to their members, things like that. And so they have a webinar coming up, and the theme of the webinar is just everything kind of HR, working, wages, job market, all of those sorts of things. So nothing clinical, but more about the HR and working aspect of being a hygienist and workplace dynamics and things like that. And so, you know, as TempStars, we just naturally operate right in that space where we connect dental hygienists and assistants with dental offices and vice versa. And, you know, I think we're over 15,000 dental hygienists and assistants who are trusting and relying on us, and similarly 4,000 or 5,000 dental offices. And so we just really operate in that nexus, and we've got a real finger on the pulse of everything that's going on because, you know, our support team gets tickets, questions, frustrations, successes, all of those sorts of things, and we listen really carefully. And so it just ends up being something that I personally care about speaking about, and hopefully I can offer some insightful perspective within that space. And so that's why Wendy had reached out to me, and we had a great conversation just in planning for this webinar type of thing. And as much as it's the BC Dental Hygienists Association, they also support the BC Dental Assistants. So they work together that way. But despite that, I mean, these are common things no matter where you are. Canada, BC, Ontario, the United States, everywhere. These are just some things that will come up in a workplace environment and thoughts that hygienists and assistants might have. And so that's what we wanted to talk about. And if we wanted to distill it down a little bit further, it was kind of more about this job market. And one of the themes was, you know, as a hygienist or a dental assistant, if you're working in an office and you're seeing the job market, and hourly rates are going up just through the natural dynamic of supply and demand of a job market, which is cyclical. And if you listen to the first TIPisode, I kind of go into that a little bit as well. But this was just about, you know, as a hygienist or assistant, you're working at an office and you're thinking, man, people are getting hired on, there's all these job postings and these hourly rates are going up. And I'm in this situation and I wonder, I'm starting to think that maybe I could or should earn more just based on the job market and things like that. And so some of it might have to do with that conversation, right? How do you broach that topic and how do you kind of go about doing it? And there's a few things to think about with that. One is really just assessing what your current situation is, because in that first TIPisode, again, and I'll say it as well, you really got to consider the whole picture of your work life and the workplace and the team and everything that goes along with it. And so I would caution everyone, just as an ongoing theme, against chasing that next dollar an hour. And especially if you're working in an office environment where you feel this is your work home and you're respected as a professional and treated well and you like the team and you're a fit for the culture and the culture is a fit for you and those sorts of things. So really don't discount that, because that's a really, really important thing. But even within that space, hourly rates, just the reality is they are going up. And so these conversations, they might be on your mind. And you might think, I love working here. I love the team. I feel like I might not be paid what the job market is demanding right now. And also when I'm having conversations with my friends and colleagues about their hourly rates, it's making me feel that, oh, if I'm making less, maybe I am valued less or not that great, not as skilled as a professional, those sorts of things. So, you know, that kind of sets the stage for that kind of conversation. And so imagine if you're in a situation where you're feeling it's toxic, you're not being treated as a professional, and you're just sort of, you know, doesn't feel like your work home, you're just there working, but you don't like it, and it's kind of a miserable environment, it's not a fit for you. It's not that it makes the conversation easier, but it makes the end result maybe a little more clear, because if you think, well, I really don't like working here, and I'd like to make more money to offset these feelings I'm having at work, well, you could more quickly maybe broach that topic with the office and say, oh, hey, you know, hourly rates are going up and I feel like it should be this. And if that is your situation, they might say sorry. But the other part and the other theme about this is you have options. I mean, in this job market, there are dozens, if not hundreds of postings for people looking for good hygienists and good assistants. And so with that as a background, it's not as though you have a little bit of negotiating leverage, I guess. Not that you'd want to exploit it, but you're in a job market environment where you've got a little bit of leverage that way. So let's say that's one situation where it's not the office that you really feel is a long-term fit for you. Well, you could broach the topic of asking for a higher hourly rate, sooner than later. But I would only say that because if it doesn't go well, it probably is for the best anyways, if that's how you're feeling about where you're working. But let's talk about the other one. So you love working at this office. You like the team, you like the culture, you like how you're being treated as a professional and things like that, but you'd like to talk about a higher hourly rate. And so I would say that the approach that would be least successful would be just saying, hey, can I set up a meeting with you? You go into the meeting and saying, I want more money per hour. Because that might catch the person off guard, and they'll want time to think about things and also feel as though they're part of the discussion as well. So give some consideration to thinking of it as a process and not just I want this or I'm walking kind of thing. Again, unless it's a really bad office for you. But if it's a good office, you like the people, there's an approach that I think is most likely to set you up for success where everybody feels like they've won. And so in an office where you like working, you definitely want to preserve the long-term relationship and the healthy dynamic that you've got going and your coworkers and that sort of thing. And so you don't want to be perceived as someone who's trying to take advantage or exploiting a situation. And so you want to kind of approach it in a way where you're saying, in a considerate way and in a professional way, I noticed that hourly rates are going up and I've been here for this long and I feel as though I'm contributing value and I'd like to talk about my hourly rate and that sort of thing. And I would say, let them know that you don't need an answer right away, because that will make them feel better, right? Because sometimes a manager and owner, they might feel a little bit on the spot and just say, I don't need an answer right away, but I just want you to know that this is on my mind. Another approach to it to think about is all of us, business owners, non-business owners, any of us who are spending money on anything, typically we exchange money for value. Right? So if we're buying something at the store or anything, we've got this money and we're exchanging it for something of value. But all of us value different things and put different priorities on different values of things. And so if you think of it in one sense, you could say, well, this dental office owner is spending money on me as my hourly rate. And so this is just a way to think about it. But then you could say, well, what is my value? And then you could say, well, what do they value? And so that's a really neat way just to open up the conversation. And you could say, well, what kinds of things are highly valued? And maybe you know for yourself and you can give it some thought, but it's not a bad idea to kind of open up that conversation with the manager. And so maybe the office really highly values clinical skills. Maybe it's communication style. Maybe it's punctuality. Maybe it's professionalism, taking great initiative with the office and going that extra mile and offering to help and always trying to stay busy. Maybe it's being really engaged and friendly with the team. And maybe it's just that their top priority is having someone who's a fit for the culture of that office. And so there's different things that different offices will place value on. And so a good way to kind of start the process is to have a conversation and say, what are the 3 to 5 most important things that this office values the most, that the owner values the most, that the manager values the most? And then that sets the stage for saying, well, are there any gaps in my providing value to this office of the things that they prioritize the most? And so if they prioritize clinical skills the highest, well, how are your clinical skills? And is there room for you to take some continuing education or hands-on courses or things like that to level up those things that the office values? There's different cultures and different priorities and different leadership styles. And so maybe punctuality is the number one and you're not necessarily great at being punctual. And so they might say, oh, well, we really value this. So that would really provide more value to us if you can make sure you come on time. And, I can tell you for TempStars, for us, it's a fit for our culture. That's our number one thing, where we're a team of very kind of positive, energetic, inspiring, and enthusiastic people who are super smart, and we energize each other. And so to me, that's the magic recipe for our team and our success. And to me, that's the fundamental thing, that anybody who works on our team fits within our culture. And then from there, we work on all of the other skills and knowledge and things that we work on that way. But for us, it's fundamental, is a fit for our culture. So that's a nice way to open up a dialogue to say, okay, how's this office going? What are the things that are valued most? And let's see if we can identify some gaps of where I have improvement, where I could work a certain way or do a certain thing that could help me provide more value. And that really puts you on a stronger footing for asking for a higher hourly rate because you've increased the amount of value that you've provided. Now, the other thing, let me flavor this with one thing, and to be respectful about it is, everyone's suffering during this kind of pandemic, post-pandemic situation, and even dental offices. I mean, reduced patient flow, tons of patients canceling either because they're sick or just say they're sick because they don't want to come to their appointments. This PPE costs and the operating costs and the infrastructure costs for, airflow and all of those sorts of things, and less patients and things like that. So there are dental offices who are suffering under these conditions, and their production is way down and that sort of thing. So also, you just want to be aware of that, because especially if it's an office where you really like working there and you want to preserve that relationship and that dynamic, you don't want to be kind of seen as though you're kind of twisting the knife a little bit. And so that's another conversation I have to say, well, can we set a plan so that as production goes up and we start to hit our normal production levels, then we start having that conversation and that sort of thing. So you've got to set it up as a two-way dynamic conversation where you're listening as well, but also feeling secure and confident in your position. But also, you don't want to just go in and say, I want this or I'm out, especially if you like the office and you feel as though that's your work home. Just kind of spend your time figuring out and maybe thinking of it as a process and setting the stage. And maybe it's 3 or 4 conversations, but you don't have to rush this kind of thing. But also just realize that there's conversations you can have, and then at the same time you have options. And so when you're considering the whole picture of your work life and your work environment and the workplace and your fit there, take that whole picture into consideration. And if you're not seeing changes that you really feel you need to see to make that whole picture great, there are options out there. So the takeaway here, let me just wrap this up. Prepare yourself for the conversation, but also be prepared for it to be a process. And so the idea of going in and saying, I want a raise, and if you don't give me a raise, I'm walking. Even if you feel like you won that one and they say, okay, we'll give you a raise, you're not setting yourself up for success in the long term at that office, because they will have felt as though they were taken advantage of, and they will feel as though you're sort of maybe taking advantage of the situation. And so you can still get the same result without approaching it that way and considering it more of a respectful professional process with maybe a few different meetings and conversations and a back and forth dialogue that way. Get a feel for what the office prioritizes as their top values. See what you can do in terms of perceiving any gaps, and then set a plan and set an agreed plan where the office says, yeah, you know what? I get it. And the office is down. And to be honest, we really value clinical skills, and your radiography really needs to be stepped up because we have to keep retaking bite wings or things like that. Set up a plan. And if it's a clinical skills gap, set up a continuing education plan for yourself. If it's a punctuality or a communication styles plan, just work on things that will set you up for better success and really give you a strong footing for earning higher hourly rates. Because even the investment in that time in that conversation will set the stage for you for maybe that doesn't work out at that office, but you've still leveled yourself up and had that good communication experience to set yourself up for success at any office you're working at. So it's a worthy investment in your time. So thanks for listening. As I mentioned, TempStars is in North America. We're, the fastest growing and most loved dental temping and hiring service. It's free for dental hygienists and assistants to use. Choose your own hourly rate. We specifically keep our placement fee as low as possible so that the hardworking dental hygienists and assistants who use our service can earn higher hourly rates without all the money going to an agency. So we really provide great value, and our Google reviews are stellar and reflect that as well. So I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks very much.
We hope you enjoyed this week's TIPisode. Be sure to reach out to our guest experts and let them know how helpful their tips were. Follow A Tale of Two Hygienists on Facebook, Instagram, and head over to ataleoftwohygienist.com and subscribe to our newsletter. You can also email us at ataleoftwohygienist@gmail.com and keep listening for more awesome content from your unofficial dental hygiene podcast.